Why is women's mental health plummeting to never before seen levels? And which women specifically seem to be the hardest hit? Now, it seems counterintuitive. I mean, after all, aren't we living in a great time for women? I mean, sure, things aren't perfect. They never are. And if we're comparing today's world with some kind of utopia that has never existed, then sure, compared to that, I guess it's bad. But here's the real question. From the feminist perspective, isn't this the greatest time to be alive and be a woman in world history? Look, I'm not a woman, but I have heard the arguments made by many prominent feminists, and as bad as they seem to think things are today, even they will concede that it's better than the battle days of like 1990. Why are women so miserable? And not just any women, liberal women, feminist women, and young women. Because according to the latest research, they seem to be the ones suffering from the most mental health issues of any group, and it isn't very close. According to a Pew Research poll, which is not known for being very conservative, over 50% of self-described liberal women between the ages of 18 and 29 have been diagnosed with a mental health issue. Now, that sounds bad, but surely if feminist women living in an increasingly feminist world are suffering, does that mean conservative women are even more miserable? No, not even close. Turns out that just a fraction of conservative and even moderate-leaning women have the kind of mental health issues that liberal women have today. We are living in a time where women have the highest representation they have ever had in the economy, politics, sports, higher education, Hollywood, media, the military, you name it. Want to go to college? You get preferential treatment. Want to be on the board of a major company? The government will actually provide financial incentives to encourage that. Do you want to run for political office? Both Democrats and Republicans will actively court you. Want to go to Ranger School? Great, let's do it. Someone needs to explain why the very women who fought for these things, have access to these things, and are potentially taking advantage of these things seem to be the most convinced that the world is completely arrayed against them as never before. On one level, you may think that kind of absurd, but on another, it's actually quite sad. Many of the ideas of the original feminist movement, like equal access, equal protection under the law, or the right to vote, have all become so mainstream that it is almost impossible to consider that it could be any other way. And perhaps, for feminist women, that's part of the problem. The first is that of the political activist. When one gets their identity through political struggle, victory can actually be somewhat empty. If one's entire identity is consumed by the struggle, then when the demand for patriarchal oppression far outstrips the actual supply, new enemies must be created. And as Don Quixote discovered, windmills make for poor substitutions for dragons. The second problem is even more dangerous in some sense, as it can be far more discouraging and lead to the kind of depression and other mental health issues we are seeing in young liberal women. And that is the realization that you may have been sold a lie. In short, the most feminist of women have been hit the hardest because when opposition to oppression gets replaced with opposition to reality, there is no legislative cure. The consequences hurt, and they always hurt those who embrace these ideas the hardest. But the good news is you've won. You have more options and choices open to you than at any time in world history. Reality is not your enemy. Wanting to be a wife and mother are not deficient choices to wanting to work in the corporate world. You can choose either. So maybe the new enemy, maybe the real enemy today is not the patriarchy or systems of oppression. Maybe the real enemy are the people that benefit from constantly convincing you that you're oppressed when you should be out there taking advantage of all the opportunities that you've won.
Do you have a why you would like us to answer? Go into the link in the description and pose your question, and maybe the next Why Minutes will be dedicated to you.